So I finished Days Gone and I want to say what I thought about it. It took me about 55 hours to finish. It's kind of disappointing. I feel like this game was so close to being way better. Instead, what we got was just average for an action adventure game and fairly good as specifically a zombie game. For anyone unaware, this was marketed as the zombie game where you're this type biker dude named Deacon St. John who gets to use his bike to travel around. The bike actually was one of the best parts of this for me. It really is fun to ride around and drift on, and the environment was really suited for it because it's full of these uneven terrains and hills. It was to the point that unless I was crossing the entire map, I usually chose to drive to any objective instead of fast traveling. It's really a great thing when the game makes you want to do that. Throughout the game, there are typical upgrades for your bike that up its stats like speed, durability, so on. And there is a cosmetic change when you buy them, but the cosmetics was one of the areas where this game kind of fell short. Let me use Final Fantasy 15 as an example of cosmetics done right. See, in that game, you use a car to travel around, and you're similarly able to upgrade it as you go throughout the game. But in this game, you're able to make this car look exactly how you want, and it's great. One of the ways 15 does this, besides changing the colors of every bit of the car, is by letting you put as many cosmetics like stripes and stickers anywhere. Days Gone gives you like 4 or 5 colors for the middle frame of the bike, and you get to pick mostly any color for the rest of the bike. It's good that you can change the finish of the color to either like matte, glossy, or metallic, but it's really inconvenient for no real reason that each survivor camp only gives you one of those options. You can't mix the colors, like making different sections different colors, and you get like one sticker on like one specific spot. That's it. What bothers me about this is that you can unlock specific skins that have like these really complex designs on the bike in places that the game doesn't let you manually do. And a lot of these skins are kind of just ugly or visually uninteresting in my opinion. And part of why I make a big deal about this is that for a AAA game, I just expect more, especially since it relates to stuff that they've clearly already capable of doing in some capacity. This bike is supposed to be one of the selling points for the game, and there's relatively little you can do to make it personal, which kind of leads me to my second point. When you have to spend a lot of time with something in a game, being able to customize it to what you want does make a difference. To use 15 as another example, I made that car beautiful to me. I travel all over the map with it, see a lot of cool shit with it, see a lot of character moments with it, including banter just between the homies. I see them each doing their own like personal quirks on getting comfortable, passing time, trying to act cool. And by the end of the game, when that car gets destroyed, I was genuinely disappointed. I felt like I had a real adventure with that car, and I didn't feel anything remotely similar happen in Days Gone.
Bleeding out. Well, that's a hell of a way to go. It's slow. A lot of pain, but I suppose you'd know all about that.
The main character, Deacon, is mixed. I'm still not sure I like him. There's some great character moments where you are shown, not told, how much this world and this life has ruined him. He's got this sort of like chivalric code and he's genuinely trying to live by it. And the few times it comes up, he tries to downplay it because he views it as something normal that you shouldn't have to bring attention to. It's actually really good. The problem is that they were trying to go for this sort of angry, tortured character who can't get close to others. And from my understanding, when you make a character like this, you have to eventually find their humanity again and redeem themselves in some way. Otherwise, all you get is this angry, unlikable dude, which is largely what happened here. But they were just so close to having this really compelling character, and all it would have taken was to just slightly adjust his interactions with the other characters. Like, for example, a character will ask him to help with, like, say, a bandit raid. He refuses, all angry, and literally, he says, "It's not my problem," at some times. The person then will bring up, like, whoever got hurt or who they lost because of the attack. And then you see the shift on his character of him wanting to help and get involved, and then he'll agree. And the game is full of moments like that. But all they needed to do was change the like initial interaction he had into either something sarcastic and evasive, or like being insensitive to what happened. My point is that he shouldn't have refused initially. Like that's just not the direction that they should have taken. It just would have felt so much more in character while also being more likable. if they had done it differently. And I just want to add too, the voice actor who played Deacon was Sam Witwer, if that's how you pronounce his name, and he was incredible at this. Just look at his delivery with these lines.
Bunch of murdering assholes, can't let any of them get out of here alive. One down. How many of you are left, huh? Like stabbing him in the back, huh? That right? Yeah, like this. Chaos clear. Now you know how it feels, being on the other end of it, yeah? Yeah.
The gameplay is pretty standard. It's a lot like The Last of Us, the first one. The crosshair when shooting is actually really similar too, but it's the same AAA style of like human enemies hiding behind cover, you hide behind cover, you wait for them to peek to shoot them, you just repeat, you know. They made an effort by adding this kind of tanky enemy with like some form of heavy weapon to put pressure on you in the middle of battle to kind of try and mix it up, and it partially works, I guess. Zombies have some really good stuff though, and some of other stuff that's disappointing. Hordes are huge swarms of zombies that usually patrol between 3 specific areas that are usually relatively near each other. And I say that because there are some that either stay more or less in one area, and others that actually have like kind of far spread apart areas that they bounce between. But seeing these hordes move is actually pretty fucking cool, and I like how scary it looks when they all collectively charge at you. Screamers are like what you'd think. You get too close and they'll scream, but the effect is so good from it. Everything will just split into this like red, green, and blue, and the camera shakes violently. It stuns you. If you're racing by on your bike, it throws you off. They actually hum as well, and it's super haunting. It's really creepy. It's great. Breakers are basically tanks from Left 4 Dead, just not as scary or as visually interesting. The first time you see them, the game makes a big deal of it and they turn it into a boss fight. But after that, you can just find them somewhat commonly in the open world. They're just bullet sponges and they're kind of just all around uninteresting. Now, Reachers. Reachers are a fucking shame. When they first got introduced, it was in this dark, scary cave. Tension was high. Deacon was vocally like saying like, okay, what am I gonna face here? Is it gonna have like really long arms, like claws, like what's happening? You know, I was just imagining this like freaky, spindly creature with like again just long arms and claws, and then you get this kind of hairy zombie that runs a little faster than a breaker and functionally kind of the same. They appear just as often as breakers, and they're just bullet sponges too. It's just so disappointing. Okay, this game should have had way more horror elements. I can tell you there were like 2 moments that were like genuinely scary. One was early on, you're looting, you open this trunk of a car, and then this like smaller zombie called a Newt pops out and attacks you. And I was so prepared after that down the line, that's just something that I was going to have to be alert for like the whole game. It never happened again. The second was also in the early game where I was in this kind of maintenance hallway. It was dark. There was a trail of blood on the ground. And suddenly a zombie just pops out of this closed doorway. I was so excited thinking this game was just going to have so many just suspense-filled moments. And I never knew whether I was going to be attacked by a zombie or if I was just being paranoid and overcautious. That kind of thing never happens again. It's so frustrating because if they had leaned harder into that kind of thing, this game just would have been so much stronger. It could have used that. The open world is probably the weakest thing about this game. There's only about 2 significant things to find. One is the hordes out in the open world, and the other is these abandoned government checkpoints that turn into fast travel points. What the game does to try and provide content in the open world is that while you're traveling, a blue question mark will appear to notify a randomly generated event from a very short list of possible choices. None of these are ever really worth it. Reason being, usually they try to be about loot, but loot barely means anything because crafting is extremely shallow in this game. So when you get materials, it's kind of worthless. And if they try to be about weapons, they're almost always inferior to what you already have, so that's not worth it either. I want to give them credit because sometimes these random events tell a little story about what happened at that location, but it's only sometimes, and I feel like that should have been a given, not the like exception here. It only ever happened twice in the whole 55 hours I played, but I was walking out in the open world and ran into this snare trap that led to me getting kidnapped, where I had to break out of a bandit camp and just steal back all my stuff. But I mean, those were cool, surprising moments. And yeah, bandit camps are a thing. You can find them in the open world, and sometimes they turn into fast travel points too. What you do get in just the right frequency is two types of ambushes. One is where if you're not paying attention, you'll run into this clothesline trap, throwing you off your bike, dealing critical damage to you, and it leaves you vulnerable to the enemies rushing you. The other is this kind of sniper ambush where you get sniped off your bike and enemies rush at you, but there just isn't much in the map, and I just never felt a reason to explore. It's kind of a rare experience, but there was a trap where a survivor was tied up in the middle of the road, and if you stop, you get ambushed by bandits. Again, that's a cool feature to the game, but think about it. In the 55 hours, I saw these things happen just often enough that these events didn't get boring. That's a lot of time with nothing else happening. Oh yeah, and there's a variance of the survivor trapped in the middle of the road. There's another version where they're like tied up like on their knees or something, and there's like a few bandits around them. Kind of the same thing. I know I said the open world is the weakest, but I feel like the story was where they fucked up the most, because if they had made this a shorter game by cutting the last area, this game could have been great. There's a point in the story where the main character is dealing with a faction that's been building into this huge thread. Big reveal, their boss is a character from Deacon's past, and the consequences of his past actions have caught up with him. Everything about this confrontation felt like an ending. After it, he made his peace with all the other characters as best he could. He's basically exiled. And then we get a whole new area and chunk of more gameplay. All the emotional impact just gets lost and forgotten. It would have worked so much better if, after settling his affairs with everyone, he visits his wife's grave one last time, because the whole game, the possibility that she's still alive has been just building. So he rides off alone, desperately clinging to vague hope, leaving the game open-ended if he ever did find her, and if he did, would that even be enough to heal him and redeem him? And instead of just spending all that time developing that whole new area, that time would have been better spent actually fleshing out the rest of the game, because it's so barren. TLDR, could have been better, should have been shorter.